Welcome back, and it's time for our media panel. This week, listener columnist Bill Ralston and New Zealand on-screen content director Irene Gardiner. There's only really been one story this week, and it didn't end well for Team New Zealand, did it? Here's how the Stuff website reacted. Look at that choke on This New Zealand. Did they get it wrong, guys?
Yes, I think they did. I think they misjudged it. I know they claim that there were people out there who were thinking that and saying that, but I think the New Zealand Herald really ran a much more responsible series of front pages right the way through. I think that helped set the public mood, certainly in Auckland.
Irene?
I agree with Bill. I think it was a spectacular misread of the public mood, which was very evident on social media within seconds of it going up.
They defended it. Mark Stevenson stuff.
They did defend it, and they defended on the grounds of we're an objective news outlet, we're not a cheerleader. And that's an interesting philosophical discussion, actually, and it does have some merit as a discussion because, you know, some people perhaps did go a bit too far in terms of being a cheerleader and did lose some of that objectivity, but there's a middle ground, and I think, you know,
They didn't get the middle ground.
They
I think
didn't.
they were wrong, you see. I mean, in the sense that it wasn't actually a choke, it was just simply that the technology used in Oracle was far better.
I think it's also worth mentioning how the cup was covered by the British Daily Telegraph there, Britain's Daily Telegraph. Look at that. What have we got? Sir Ben Ainsley's team won the America's Cup 2013. He was subbed in halfway through, wasn't he?
Technically true.
He was.
Well, the Australians will get a better claim.
Everyone wants to own the winner. Everyone wants to be it.
He's very well known in Britain, so I guess they were going for the local angle.
He was so good that Larry Ellison didn't put him on the boat at the start.
That is true. That is true.
All right, and the Herald on Sunday has a new editor, Midiana Alexander, the head of news at the Sunday Star Times. There she is. This is a good move. This is a good move.
Good move by the Herald on Sunday. She's an extremely good journalist, and I think that's a good move.
And I think they've been looking at her for a long time, haven't they, into this role?
I think she'll be an interesting middle ground, actually. Shane Curry, long-time editor, very commercial. Sometimes we rolled our eyes a little when he moved a little into the more tabloid zone.
You would have rolled your eyes a lot of it.
Then Bryce Johns, who was very, but almost a bit too straight, and I think she might be somewhere nicely in the middle for that paper. I think it's a good move too.
All right, let's introduce our guest, the media panel today, Kris Faafoi, Labour's new broadcasting spokesman. Kris, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Congratulations on the appointment.
Thank you very much.
So this means the Charter's coming back, the TVNZ Charter's coming back, does it?
Not so fast. I think a lot of the conversations I've had this week have been about whether the Charter was a success or failure, whether or not it was good having a mongrel or purebred. So I think TVNZ itself has gone for one, and that's the commercial. So I'm still scratching my head as to what we do with that, because I'm a big believer in public broadcasting.
Are we going to see a policy out of Labor, a broadcasting policy prior to the election, that you can actually say this is what you're going to do to Television New Zealand, to the whole broadcasting industry?
I think that's what we have to do, given the technology is changing. People in the industry will want some certainty about what state broadcasting, what public broadcasting is. I don't think that the state broadcasters alone can do public broadcasting. I think the commercial broadcasters are doing a very good job of it too. But you will see exactly what we want public broadcasting to be, given the changes that are about to happen, not just in broadcasting, but in terms of technology. I think it's very important that we have a pretty clear idea of how that looks.
Where does Sky TV sit on sort of your radar and the agenda? Does it need sort of more regulation, stronger regulation, harder regulation?
I think we need to have some competition. I think they've obviously got a pretty big footprint in terms of television, and they're in a pretty interesting position as well because of where the internet is going as well. They've obviously got a broadcast platform, but they don't have a really big platform in terms of in the internet. So they're in a tricky position as well. But I want to make sure that people have a choice, that they don't have a dominance there where you have to have Sky to have any decent television or coverage or content coming into your home. So I think it's important that we make sure there is an alternative platform like Freeview out there, and obviously people don't have to pay a Sky subscription to make sure that they're getting decent TV in their homes.
Irene, you've got views on this?
I have some views on this, yes. I mean, it was interesting listening to Kris there because we've got the past broadcasting policies to deal with now, and in terms of public service broadcasting, I think it would be very difficult now to make TVNZ back into that. I think that horse is bolted. Yeah. And so, if you want to go more that way, you'd almost be better to, invest in something that exists already in that world, like Face TV or, Māori TV, broaden that out or whatever. But you do also have to remember in New Zealand, we are quite well served by New Zealand On Air funding those kinds of programs across the channel.
It interests me that you said right at the start of this, Kris, that we were trying to work out whether the Charter was a success or not. Bill, what's your view of that?
Well, no, the Charter
I think you only answer to that
were
too,
all there
Kris.
we were all there when it did have the double remit.
Yeah.
And I think, certainly in my time, I saw the news department go from a very strong and fierce news department to one where the marketing department became quite dominant there. So did that work? No, I don't think it did. So what's the alternative? This is another reason why I think we should have kept TVNZ7, because that was another outlet but through TV where we could have had strong public broadcasting. I'm not a cultural snob. I know that you need to have the likes of this show and other shows that are good and informative and educated, but you also need to know that getting out and amongst the communities and reflecting New Zealand back to them is also very important. So there is a place for things like X Factor. So you just have to factor in all those kinds of things when you're looking at what television or what content is going to look like in a digital age.
And what about New Zealand On Air too? I mean, that's done a huge job over the last decade or more, hasn't it, really, to bring us New Zealand television, including this show.
Yeah.
You have no quarrels with New Zealand On Air? No problems with it?
I think New Zealand storytelling is very important.
Yeah.
And New Zealand On Air is the way that we can do it, because let's be clear, if it wasn't there and it wasn't funding those programs, like this program, these programs would not happen.
No.
That's absolutely fundamentally the truth, because the commercial broadcasters and TVNZ simply wouldn't have a business case for it. So we need to make sure New Zealand On Air is there funding the likes of this show and other shows, but they also have a challenge about how they deal with new digital technology and how they get New Zealand stories out there, not necessarily on air, but also into homes and on tablets and all those kinds of things. So it's a very interesting time, and it's not just broadcasting. It's about how we get the content out there, and I think it's very important that we're telling New Zealand stories.
The channel, the TVNZ7 interests me too. You're quite keen on that, again.
Yeah, I think we don't have a pure television broadcaster at the moment that deals with public broadcasting, state broadcasting, and has that content. We lost it when TVNZ7 came along, and I think we need an outlet, because while we're very well served by Radio New Zealand, we don't have anything that serves a specific purpose like that on the television.
Do you do it with one channel though? I mean, why say one channel? Why not use the New Zealand On Air model and spread those kind of programs across all channels?
And I think to a degree, that the commercial broadcasters at the moment, with the New Zealand On Air funding, are doing a very, very good job of telling those New Zealand stories and getting that content out there. Almost better than the state broadcaster. We've seen 2 documentaries on this network, inequality and child poverty, that you haven't seen on the state broadcaster. So it's not just the function of the state broadcaster. We've gone too far, and New Zealand On Air is giving funding to all broadcasters to make sure there's quality programming out there. And as long as there's quality content, that's very, very important. I think I said to someone before, it's all good to have the bigger pipes and the faster pipes, but if you're pumping sewage down it, it's still the same stuff.
Do you think it's the answer, Irene? Do you think this sort of approach is the way to go?
I think NZ On Air putting public service type television across all the networks is good and should probably continue. I think you could probably adapt something that already exists to be, Face TV, which I mentioned before, which currently, unfortunately, you can only get on Sky, but maybe there'd be a way of working that. That is a public service channel. You could put a little bit more investment into it, make it a little stronger, perhaps do a little more with Māori TV. I think you might find you could rejig what we've already got to get there rather than starting a whole new thing.
Well, you've also got your Pacific Island channel that you're promoting during... Remember that one, Bill? The Pacific Island channel. I think David Cunliffe was talking about that,
I'll
wasn't
have a chat to Jonesy about that. But I obviously want to see, obviously I'm the Associate Pacific Island Affairs and Pacific Islander myself. That population is going to increase by about 50% over the next 15 years. So making sure they've got an avenue to make sure that they're telling their stories, and so their journey continues here in New Zealand, is also very important. Digital technology and the ability to have more channels will help them do that, because in the past they simply haven't had the technology or the ability to do it. But now we do. Probably not right now, but in the future it's going to be much easier to start up a public broadcasting channel for specific community groups.
But pretty fair to say that when you look back at the Labour administration, Helen Clark regime around the Charter, that thinking has gone.
It certainly has. And we're going to have to be a bit more creative about public broadcasting. I think Radio New Zealand is the jewel in the crown. It is doing its job very,
Labour
very
would
well.
increase its budget. I mean, no one's increased its budget for many years.
And that's the issue with the current government. They've frozen it, but I think we need to look at being a bit more creative in terms of how we get another revenue stream for them. There's another frequency available to them. Why can't we start a new audience for them? And I'm not opposed to looking at maybe making that commercial, because you've got a strong brand there now that you can't touch, that you wouldn't touch.
About the extra channel that they've got the
they've got another frequency there.
That's the commercial. You wouldn't commercialise state
No,
national radio.
absolutely. I think you leave that alone because that's the strong.
Would you put more money though into Radio New Zealand? Would you put more money? I think Bill's asking this, into New Zealand
I
on
can't
air.
sit here now and say I can give it more money because times are tough and I don't have that commitment. But what I would say is we need to start looking at ways to make sure they have got more money and being more creative and maybe opening up another network where you get a new generation of listeners there where you can get sponsorship, because let's be honest, that listenership with RNZ is older. We need to get a new wave of Kiwis listening to it and a new wave of public broadcasting that serves that new audience.
Nice to have you on the program. Good luck under the new leader as well.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to your success.